Christ almighty. I honestly don't know where to start with what I just saw. Boris Johnson just gave out his speech to the party conference, or at the party conference, I should say. And I've a mixed bag of emotions. I'm trying my best not to swear because I am incredibly pissed off with a lot of what he said. So, brought up Brexit. Of course he brought up Brexit. Brexit is quite a big deal. But again, forcing through this notion of, well, we have to get it done by the 31st, come what may. We will be out of the European Union by the 31st. Now, as I've said well over 100 times, we're not ready to leave the European Union. Dover is not ready. We are a tiny port town that has had no infrastructure developed. If you were really smart about it, you would have developed and set up another customs import at Ramsgate so that it would alleviate a lot of the pressure. As I've said before, 10,000 lorries come through Dover every single goddamn day. Be a lot easier if it was only 5,000 and the other 5,000 were going through Ramsgate. But that's not been done. Nothing has been done to prepare us for a no-deal Brexit. But at this point, I'm just going to repeat what I said in previous videos. So then he brings up the Irish border. Now, as I've said before, and I constantly find myself saying the exact same thing to the most staunchest of Brexiteers because they just don't care about reality. The EU said in the early days, the Irish border is the biggie. You sort that out, everything else is up for negotiation. So Boris's plan is to completely get rid of the backstop, which gets rid of a need for checks at the border, which respects the Good Friday Agreement, which is really important, to having checks at the border or near the border, because obviously at the border would be a little bit difficult as some parts of the border actually go through people's homes. But it's okay, because despite the fact that having checks at the border, that will respect the Good Friday Agreement. No, it won't. And this is one of the lies that infuriated me, because this man has made it blatantly obvious, even now, 3 goddamn years later, he's never read the Good Friday Agreement. He doesn't know what's fucking in the Good Friday Agreement, and he just doesn't care. But that's what we expect from Bojo the Cowardice Clown. So then going forward, another one that really, really infuriated me. Actually, before we get onto that, I just want to note the whole tone of his speech. The camera constantly cutting to people, to conservatives. I was going to say they don't really class as people, but I don't want to go over that line. But conservative scumbag that are in the audience, and people are laughing at things that he's saying, and at one point he was saying that even his mum voted to leave. I mean, okay, I'm not questioning, he is a pathological liar, but that's fine. But it's just the way that the camera then shot to Bojo's dad, who's laughing it up, and turns to the woman he's with. I don't know if she's a relation or not. But you can see he clearly says, I didn't know that. It's not a joke. For the wealthy, this is fine. For the multi-millionaires like Boris, like Jacob Rees-Mogg, this is absolutely fine. But for the rest of us, this will lead to deaths. There are millions of people who barely survive from paycheck to paycheck. They are going to be hit the hardest. And that doesn't even count the people who aren't surviving paycheck to paycheck, who are deciding, okay, do I eat a meal today or do I keep the lights on? Yet I'm really trying not to swear, because I know I'm swearing too much lately. But these scumbags are laughing as if it's nothing. And that pisses me off more than anything about Brexiteers. You're laughing at the fact that people in our country are going to die because you think this country doesn't have any power, when over and over again it's been proven we absolutely have power. You've been fucking lied to. Okay, but then he goes on to the NHS and constantly pushes for that tried and tested soundbite of the Conservatives are the party of the NHS. But they're not. Over and over. First off, the NHS was founded by a Labour government with a lot of opposition by the Conservatives at the time who tried to stop it. And since then, at every single opportunity, Conservatives have acted to defund the NHS. It is now in the worst state it has ever been in because we've had such a long reign of Conservatives who have been cutting it over and over again. And I say this to anyone who would ever vote Conservative. Don't sit there and tell me that you support the NHS if you've ever voted Conservative. Or I should rephrase that because we all make mistakes. But if you actively vote Conservative, don't pretend that you support our NHS or our education or our police force or our services or fire and rescue. Because over and over again, the Conservatives consistently cut every bit of funding they can. The Conservative Party is not the party of the NHS. They're just not. And that's demonstrable in their long and horrible reign. Coming out and saying that they're going to build 40 or 60, I'll be generous, I'll say 60. The exact number eludes me at the moment. But saying that they're going to build 60 new hospitals. But we already know that they're not, and that is a lie. What Bojo actually meant was they're going to refurbish 4 or 6. Now again, I'll be generous, I'll say 6. But what exactly is refurbishment? I've got a slightly better idea. Dover has a very, very nice hospital. It's practically brand new. You could open up an A&E department there. That would help Kent in general on a massive level because the nearest A&Es are in Ashford or the QEQM. You're going to go to either one of them if you have a serious accident. There's a lot of people that live around Dover. And our hospital is a glorified doctor's office. Because Conservatives cut funding. During this little spout, he did the usual attack on Corbyn, which I think everyone expected, leader of the opposition, and saying things that Corbyn promoted in his in the Labour conference, saying that pushing forward a 4-day working week would slash the income of most people in the UK, and yeah, it would, but there is a way around that, and I am very much for a 4-day working week. I've worked in care for 7 years. I came from the place I am now. I came from a job where I had 3 days off a month. I'm very much for a 4-day working week, but I know it doesn't apply to every single aspect. But here's how you get around that. You give salary instead of pay per hour. It's really that fucking simple. Because that's what Bojo is on. That's what his cronies are on. And let's not forget, this notion of lazy workers don't deserve it. Well, no. Productivity has gone up well over 100%. I forget the exact number. But we're earning less now compared to standard of living than we ever have done before. While the people who actually do the least amount of work, the CEOs, the hedge fund managers and all the rest of it, they do the least amount of work, and yet they take in almost everything and feed us crumbs from the table. It's not how it should work. Certainly not in 2019. Of course, he had to put in his usual dig to socialism. Again, this infuriated me because the NHS is a socialist program. So is education. And on education, when he condemned Corbyn's desire to get rid of all private schools, saying that it would cost the taxpayer billions. No, it wouldn't. Finland has the best education, one of the best educations in the entire world, and they have no private schools. Because when it comes to an individual student's academic abilities, it doesn't matter if they go to public or private school. What matters is that student given the opportunity, which in this system that the Conservatives have, they are not. But when you take away the private schools, it means the kids from the wealthy families go to the same schools as the kids in struggling families, which means the wealthy families are investing in the exact same schools as the ones that the poor kids go to, so the opportunities are exactly the same. This is an economic stimulus for countries. It doesn't cost if at the end of it there is a net gain. But of course, Boris Johnson, a Conservative, hates everything that would go to someone who's not wealthy. So public education he would continue to dismantle. There are so many things wrong with what Bojo said. So many lies. And I know that a lot of the mainstream media isn't going to fact check any of it, which is fucking infuriating. But as I was watching it, as I was watching him come out and lying about the EU, lying about the police numbers he's going to give, lying about the NHS, lying about all kind of social programs, lying about pensions. I mean, hell, the only thing he said that was truthful was that the Conservatives are the party to cut tax. Yes, they will cut tax, but they'll cut tax for the wealthy, as they have consistently done throughout the years, and everyone else is going to suffer because of it. As I was watching it, I think it's obvious at this point, I detest Boris Johnson. But as I was watching it, I couldn't help but feel angry and rage towards every single member of Parliament. Not because I will throw them into the same boat, but because every single one of them is responsible for Boris Johnson being our Prime Minister. On day one, they could have got together and said, you know what? You are woefully unfit to be Prime Minister. And that would have been it. But they didn't. Of course the Lib Dems wouldn't, because they're conservative themselves. But Labour didn't do it either. Nor did the SNP. Every single person in Parliament knows Boris Johnson's history. They know his political history, they know his occupational history. They know this man is a failure and has been rewarded with failure after failure after failure. Every single one of them is responsible for Boris Johnson being Prime Minister. This man who is a pathological liar. And while all of this is going on, while all my anger is building up, while Boris Johnson continues to use language that he knows damn well triggers right-wing extremists to commit acts of terror, while all of this is going on, those fucking scumbag Conservatives are sat there laughing and clapping. applauding the man who will destroy the country, applauding the pathological liar who has failed at every aspect of his career, yet has been rewarded for his failure. They sit there laughing and clapping, knowing full damn well that since they took the throne, figuratively, every action they have done has damaged, has hurt the people of this country, and has led to millions of people dying, has led to millions of people being forced to be homeless. Saying that on average the wages have gone up is an outright lie. The EU forced you to raise the minimum wage, but you did it to the bare minimum you could get away with, and then you gave the top dogs, the CEOs, the already wealthy elites a massive pay rise, while again everyone else gets scraps. I honestly don't understand someone who votes Conservative or still promotes Conservative Party if they want the NHS, or if they want their children to have an education, or if they want adequate policing on the street, or if they want an adequate military, or if they want fire and rescue, if they want fire departments, if they want their loved ones to have social care when they get older, if they want a fucking pension when they get older. The retirement age is now higher than life expectancy in this country. And yet those fucking scumbags are sat there laughing it up and applauding Bojo, the cowardice clown. Politics is a fucking disgrace.